a basic review of functions, focusing on how to make functions and less on how to check them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about the difference between a function and a variable. A variable is something like x that represents, it's called a variable, but it really represents a single thing, a value that doesn't change. A function, on the other hand, represents a process that can be used to make values. So, for example, multiply number by 2. If I go x, 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 I'm going to see 50, 50, 50. If I go f of 10, f of 20, f of 30, I'm going to see 20, 40, 60. The process, so see the difference is the function has things that are called inputs. These are arguments. They are the information that goes into a function, and it gives back a result, the output. A variable does not have any inputs, and its number by itself is the output. So these are simple variables, and these are functions. A function doesn't have to just have one input. For example, I can define a function g that takes in two numbers, n and m. And it does say n times m, and then maybe add the first number again. So when we use this kind of function, we would put a number like 10 for n and 150 for m. And the result here should be from this set of parentheses, 10 times 150 is 1500, and then plus another 10, so 1510. So I'm going to run that. Let's see, multiple inputs. Here. So you see it did get 1510. There's a way to write down that you believe that's the right answer. That's check expect. Do the math yourself and say what you think the right answer is. Hey, sometimes you need to check things that are decimals. So for example, if you did n is 1 and m is pi, then the right answer is pi plus 1. And you'll see that that looks a little weird in Dr. Racket. We get the answer here. That's pi plus 1. The hashtag I means it's an inexact number. That means you'll have to do check within. And then you're not supposed to write down all those decimals. So pi is 3.14 plus 1 would be 4.14. And we need a margin of error. And I put 1 in the last decimal place as my standard error, like the normal amount without thinking about it. Okay, so we should get another test that passed. Wonderful. Okay, so now we've talked about variables like x and functions like f or g. When you're writing a function, you'll watch me begin with variables and then change over to functions. So for example, so we already have a variable called x. So at this point, x is 50. And I could be trying to write a function that does like h of x equals x times x minus 100. That's x squared minus 100. And so let's say I'm trying to write that function. This would be a math number function. Well, so the first thing I would do is I would actually define some steps personally. So I already have my x variable, and step 1 is x times x, and step 2 is step 1 minus 100. So actually, my h of x function is just step 2. And this works like moderately well, but these step 1 and step 2 are variables that aren't going to change unless the value of x changes. So if I wanted to write down what I thought was going to happen here, when x is 50, we get 50 squared, which is 2,500, minus 1, which is 2,400. And I think that one will work. Yeah, sure. But other numbers like plugging in 10 should be 10 squared. Well, that's a bad example. 20. 20 squared is 400, minus 100 is 300. This is not going to work because even though this x is a variable, it's not the same variable that's getting used later on. So this x up here, this one, is connected to the definition of x way at the top. This x here doesn't connect to anything. Oof. So this test here is going to fail because the 20 doesn't connect with this. This x doesn't connect with this x. There's an easy fix for this. Just undo the work you did, copy and paste the previous steps in. Now you see that this x here actually does connect to these other x's. So I think that for me, this kind of reverse copy and paste is the way that I make functions. See, there's those x's are connected now. And I'm up here in the upper right hand corner hitting checked syntax. All right. So this, I've just demonstrated the multiple step method and then kind of reverse substitution to go back to the original, to go back to get the variables inside of the define. Okay, and now I think this will pass the 2 tests, which makes me happy. All right, so let's see what we got. So far we've talked about functions versus variables, and I've been doing number functions. Now we have on the list to do a 1 and 2 step image function. And so, image functions. The 1 step image function. Let's make a function that's going to place a circle with a given radius on top of a picture, centered on a 300 by 200 frame. So that means I'm thinking of the radius. Let's say radius is 60, and I'm thinking of the image. Let's say scale to picture of hacker, and then we want the background, which would be empty scene 300 by 200. And let's see. So how I'm going to do this, overlay circle R outline blue on top of image on top of background. And let's see if that looks good. Let's not make it centered. Let's make it, well, that one looks good, but when you understand it, you should try to make the upper left. So, hey, this looks great. Define image 1. It takes in a radius and an image, and it puts out this. Since it's all 1 step, I still have my variables inside here. Looks pretty good. Image 1, 60, and then scale to pic of hacker. That should give one of the examples. And let's say image 1, 50, scale 3, pic book would be another example. So I'm expecting on the first one to see a relatively, well, I made this one bigger. So let's see, scale 3, so I'm going to do 80 radius instead of 60. Now let's take a look and see what comes out. Okay, do we have the circle around the hacker? Yes. And then did we get a larger circle around the picture of the book? I'm a little skeptical about that one. So let's try to make this circle radius larger. So I'm going to make this circle, wait, there's no way. This definitely didn't work. Oh, here we go. The next one down. There. That's what I was looking for. Larger circle and a picture of a book. Shoot. If I wanted to make check expects, I would copy and paste these images up into the code. And then, after you have the images, put in the check expect. If you don't have the images before you put in the word check expect, your code is not going to run, and then you're going to have a hard time actually making the images. Okay, so now I made 2 check expects, and that's a success. That's the end of this video. Sorry we didn't get to all the topics, but we got function versus variable, and we got examples of image functions and number functions.